Bobby, what's going on, my man? How are you?
Matt, we are back in the studio. Good to be here.
We are back in our studios, I guess. It's been a while. It's
Studios.
been 2 weeks. I hope everyone had a great Memorial Day weekend. I know we did.
Mm-hmm.
We were
Yes,
both
indeed.
down the beach, catching some sun, getting some drinks. Didn't think about politics all that much. Kind of came back from the Twitter hiatus. I know you're slowly working back into it.
Yep.
A lot going on, though. Tons of stuff to talk about over the past 2 weeks. Thanks for
That's for
joining
sure.
us. We are the Ombudsman Report. This is the OR Podcast. My name is Matthew Spurrier. Joined with me, as always, my co-host, Bobby Juliana. What's going on? All right. We got
You
a
tell
bunch.
me, where do we want to start? Like
we
you
gotta-
said, I've been on a hiatus. You deleted Twitter. I followed shortly after. It was very nice. Memorial Day weekend, totally dropped the news cycle, didn't connect. You come back, and there's stupidity everywhere.
Yeah, nothing's changed, essentially.
Yeah,
So
no.
there we go. So, I mean, you can either be a part of it, you can be a part of the craziness that is American politics 2018, or, sometimes I'm jealous of people that are just blissfully ignorant. A couple of people that I saw down the shore that, and this isn't a slight against anyone, obviously, that doesn't pay attention. I'm kind of jealous of you, in a way, because I just get myself worked up, but I was talking to people and they asked me about what's going on, and I was sort of surprised that they had no idea any of this stuff was happening. It was sort of just Memorial Day weekend, summer's starting, and I'm glad that at least some people can enjoy it that way, right? Even if we can't.
Yeah.
So on that dark note, let's go on to our first topic. I mean, I guess we have to address the elephant in the room, Roseanne.
Yep. Still lingering in the news cycle.
Still lingering in the news cycle. If you haven't heard, so Roseanne tweeted something, I believe it was last week or this week. She called Valerie Jarrett, African-American woman, an ape and probably part of the Muslim Brotherhood. Yeah, I didn't.
Not a good look.
I
Not a good
didn't
look.
think there was going to be that much controversy surrounding this. It's pretty. There is a line we've kind of drawn as Americans that you don't compare black people to apes or monkeys. That's sort of a
I think
red
the line
line.
is just like you don't be racist, but
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you don't be racist, and that's what it was. Roseanne's tweet was definitely racist, and a bunch of people rightfully took up in arms, and it ended up with ABC canceling her show, which I've heard a bunch of different takes on this by now, and I'm sure anyone listening to this surely has. I've heard Roseanne has mental issues. She apparently is trying to get mental help. She was really upset about it. She claimed she didn't know Valerie Jarrett was black. Interesting little try to save yourself there. I do feel for the cast and crew. She seemed upset that she cost them their jobs.
right.
But what do you want ABC to do here? You know what I mean? I mean, ABC, Disney, they're supposed to be a family network. You can't really have, your main star, Roseanne. The show is named Roseanne after Roseanne Barr. You can't have her behaving this way. So, they were perfectly in their right to cancel the show. I was sort of surprised. Well, double take. So people like Tommy Lauren and them actually came out and said, yo, wrong is wrong. Let's not, when you took Roseanne under as an ally, when she started becoming a Trump supporter, and Roseanne is like a crazy conspiracy theorist socialist, by the way.
Yeah, she's been crazy her whole
life.
career. Yeah, forever.
You live by the Roseanne, you die by the Roseanne. This is
Sure.
the hard part. If you're going to accept celebrity, right? Because me and you have talked about it. Republicans, they want celebrities to like them because there's not that many that actually end up doing it. Just as a product of our culture and Hollywood being as left as it is. When you accept these people, I know you want them to be like your champion, but doesn't always work out the way you want.
I wouldn't say that they turned her into that. I think
sorry,
they came
the
to her
MAGA
defense
people.
a little bit because
Yeah,
the show,
the MAGA people,
the character on the show was
a little bit. They wanted someone to represent them in Hollywood, and she sort of played the not all Trump supporters are evil people. right? Which is fair, which was needed in
Yeah,
a
sure.
sense. But yeah, it just kind of sucks for them anyway, I guess.
I hate how our culture has devolved, regardless of the issue, whether it's this or, going all the way back to Parkland or just anytime a host says something you disagree with, the opposite political side reaction now is to just call for a boycott, call for the show cancelization, go after advertisers. It's just, I mean, any of the companies has the right to cancel the show like ABC did. Regardless of left or right, I didn't used to be like this. It used to be we would just judge the person individually,
right?
And sort of left it at that. But now we have to cancel your show, cancel your business, and it's almost like each side is just trying to collect scalps.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's always been the case, I think, and I think it's even more prevalent now in social media, where not just like the Democratic Party can go for scalps, but anyone who is on the left can go for scalps now.
Fair enough. I don't know if it's always been like this. That's what I'm saying. I think it's.
You don't think? I mean, you're right. You're right. I mean, at least that's what they say it was like. Right. I mean, I think it was probably there. They just didn't have the means to do it.
Sure. Social media drives a lot of this.
Yeah.
A lot of this outrage is social online.
But you're right in that sense. I mean, there is nothing really to say to defend Roseanne. Again, I mean, I can't really defend that. It was just sort of, it's so weird how there always has to be, we can't even agree that this was racist and that it shouldn't have happened. There's got to be people, Bill Mitchell, tweeting
All right, but
out.
He doesn't like speak for.
No, he doesn't. He's pretty far right.
There's like, I would say, because I think this is going to come up next in our discussion here, that Roseanne received far less support, almost no support, compared to the support that Samantha Bee received just, a couple days after. And you can say, like, you're not comparing apples to oranges because, like, an offensive word isn't a racist slur. And, like, sure, there's something to that. But there was not a widespread defense of Roseanne Barr. There's those, Bill Mitchells of the world that like the hardcore MAGA people.
They're like the weirdos
that just stake out from the opposite side of whatever the left is calling for.
No, you're right. That's fair enough. Because a lot of people, I saw like Fox News and stuff, they did say this is wrong. Right. Because
it is.
Well, because it is, exactly. And what's funny is like conservatives have to play this game, and the left is looking for this game where the left is looking for the opportunity that, like, you see, they are as bad as we told you they are. They are as racist as they did. And that's not the case. So the Republicans have to, like, they have to jump out in front of it and be like, no, this isn't us. We're milquetoast, vanilla people like Mitt Romney. Like, we're not bad people.
All we do is strap dogs to the top of our cars. No, but,
right.
She makes this comment, show gets canceled. The left tries to turn it into an indictment of the whole right. You see, like, opinion pieces, like, Roseanne's comment is actually reflective of the average Trump supporter.
Right, that's not true at all, I don't think.
Come on, no, it's not. It's a huge overreach. Whereas, I would say, here's the thing though, like the social justice warrior left is not the 50% of the 50% of the country that voted for Hillary Clinton.
Right.
But they're their voice.
Fair.
And they allow that.
In the same way that Trump isn't the voice of all conservatives, right? I mean, is that what you're sort of getting at, or? I think maybe a little bit different. Maybe Trump's more the voice.
Sure. I mean, he's not. I wouldn't say he. I mean, but he's the voice of the Republican Party at the moment, but he's not the voice of conservatism. At least those that actually aren't completely wishy-washy and just bow down to whatever he says, like the ones that actually believe it.
Right. The ones
whereas I would say,
books.
the crazy social justice warrior left is the driving force of the Democrat Party.
Right. They sort of force all of their politicians to account.
And so, for example, like when you have someone who, is a Trump supporter, like Roseanne Barr, she clearly, has a racist comment and has a mistake. You're not going to see a widespread defense of that. But then you have someone like Samantha Bee who comes out and calls the president's daughter the C word.
Maybe we should cue the video for this. So this is your first time. If you've been watching,
technology
this is a big
here,
technology upgrade. I'm actually going to play for you Samantha Bee's comments real quick, so just so we can, for fun, because
yeah.
now
So
we have
context.
this.
A couple days after Roseanne's storm, we get this.
Let me just say, one mother to another, do something about your dad's immigration practices, you feckless. He listens to you.
So you just heard that, and Samantha Bee called Ivanka Trump a feckless cunt for putting up a picture of Ivanka hugging her child on Memorial Day. So what prompted a lot of people, I think it's June 3rd now. Has Ivanka apologized for putting up an Instagram hugging her kid yet? Since this is the most egregious crime in the world, she deserves to be called the C word.
No, but she is that because, don't you know, basically she just disagrees on immigration policy, and down on the border we're supposedly just heartlessly separating children and families. And so when she posts a picture with her kid, that makes her,
She's actually saying, you don't get to talk to your kids, I do. Right. I don't even think Ivanka Trump, I guarantee if you ask her about immigration policies, she's probably, a softie. Let's be real. Ivanka Trump isn't politically active. She got dragged into this with her father.
Yeah, no, she's not some right stalwart of conservatism.
She's not Tommy Lauren. That's the second time I brought up Tommy in this Instagram, right? She's not. Yeah, she's not exactly.
I mean, I don't know if it was her, or if it was both of her, both the Trump sons that didn't actually get to vote in New York because they were still registered Democrats. So
I think it was her, actually.
Yeah,
you're right. That's a good point. I
vote in the
completely forgot about
for
that.
her father because she was a registered Democrat. Yeah, but no, she just loves breaking up kids at the border.
Which is funny because, we like poking fun at the Pod Save America bros, right? Jon Favreau, Tommy Vietor, that whole crew.
Sure.
They're a bunch of Obama corporatist holdovers. And they tweeted out a bunch of pictures, harping on that same point that Samantha Bee was making, that we're separating families at the border, which, in my view, shouldn't be happening in America, right? I mean, me and you have talked about immigration before. It just is pretty crazy if that's going on. But the fact of the matter is that started going on during the Obama presidency.
I mean, it's
been going on before that.
It's hard to pin this byproduct of a shitty immigration law on Trump directly.
Right. I mean, this is what they were sharing pictures of this law from 2014. And it was so funny seeing them dunk on themselves. Who would let this happen? I don't know, dude, your fucking idol, your best friend that you guys worked with for 8 years, right? He's the one that let all that happen while he was in the middle of drone bombing poor brown people in Yemen.
I mean, he's the one who signaled that nothing would happen and caused a flood of children to be escorted up hundreds of miles from South America. So if we want to talk about, the problem of separating families and children, there's a better argument that Obama did more of that than Trump, but I don't know. That's just my...
Right. No, I mean, that's completely fair, but we're getting away from the point. So Samantha Bee eventually apologized for this comment in what was, I think, a pretty lazy Twitter apology. And this, again, I don't even give a fuck that she apologized. I don't really care. I think if you want to call
Ivanka...
Ivanka...
sincere. That's what she believes. She does it every other night and just not so many words.
Yeah. And showed that no one cared.
And this is what I was going back to with Roseanne. It showed that no one cared because this is... I will say it is reflective of how a large amount of people, a sizable amount of people, feel on the left.
Yeah.
They actually think that. I mean, they say it all the time. This is not the first example of something this vile being said about the president's family, the president himself, his young son Barron because he wore a weird shirt, his wife. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So she's just going to get away with it. I mean, TBS was she apologized, she did the right thing.
Well, it's not even that she got away with it. It's that they gave her an award for resisting on television the day after.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not a Samantha Bee needs to go in timeout because she said something bad. It's who really gives a shit, honestly. The Republicans will freak out for 2 days and then we'll move on.
And also, this is what you get with her. I see how Roseanne, that's supposed to be an ABC Family show, whatever, and then she has this. It's kind of a break from what she is. Samantha Bee gets on her show every night and just says vile shit about Republicans and anyone who disagrees with her policies and tries to make it funny. I've never laughed once. But so it's not really – it's just a little bit of a stretch from what you normally get with her. So it's just kind of, okay, give your half-assed apology so you don't lose advertisers and we'll move on from this because we can. And that's just how it works. That's how the game works.
And it wasn't it wasn't an off the cuff comment. Like Roseanne tweeted this thing. No one that was working on Roseanne knew this was going to happen.
Right.
Samantha Bee, the network, the writers, the producers, they all saw this. Right,
Scripted, filmed, greenlit, put on the air.
Exactly, and they were like, just run with it. Who cares? If it happens, it happens. Nothing's going to happen. You're getting a reward anyway for it. So,
I mean, yeah, like her show ratings will probably go up.
No, she's actually down. She's actually.
Of course, she's down. She's not funny.
Well, that's another like component of this, obviously, in my opinion. But she apparently has like one of the lower ratings in terms of political commentators, like political comedians, those types of shows, right? I just saw it this week because, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I don't watch Samantha Bee's show. It's not something I really queue up to watch every week. It's not really. I'm not really her demographic.
That's another point. Like, if you are offended by this comment, you probably weren't watching the show anyway.
Right. That's a good point. Yeah, I wasn't offended by the comment. I just think it's a funny double standard again because.
No, I'm over getting offended by people's comments. Like, I don't really give a shit. I know you think that. I don't really care. It's not me. It doesn't matter.
I'm trying to think of a right-wing comedian show like.
There aren't any.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's a good point. Could you imagine?
Well, first off, there's very few right-wing comedians, and then there's very few that they even put on television. So.
Could you imagine if Jon Stewart got on air and said that Chelsea Clinton was a feckless cunt? Could you imagine?
He would be fired immediately.
It would actually be a big deal, and they'd be, well, Chelsea Clinton does all this great work with children, and who cares that her mother likes to start wars and drop bombs on people?
Yeah, you'd see opinion pieces like calling women the C word is actually equivalent to physical violence. Whereas when this happens, you get a I don't remember who wrote the piece.
You're mandating violence against women.
Post. No, it was Washington Post when Samantha Bee said this. They said, Samantha Bee was actually just trying to reclaim the C word for women.
Oh my God!
So 2018 feminism is a woman calling another woman the C word, and that's empowering. Or something.
No, it's not. It's
a
gross.
It's the way they bend over backwards to defend people is honestly the funniest part of all this. But Michael Malice made a great point that you shared with me. Mm-hmm. Here's where we're at. Okay, like I'm old enough to remember maybe 12 days ago when Trump called a violent gang that cuts people's heads off animals. And we were told that that's dehumanizing and violent and inappropriate and reflective of who he is as a person, right? A violent gang of criminals. They're animals. But, we should defend Samantha Bee, who calls the president's daughter a cunt, and that's fine, and it's empowering to women, and, it's okay. So they get more outrage that the president's daughter gets called that than an
MS-13 gang animals, right? Exactly. It's so
why
funny.
Their outrage just falls on such deaf ears because it's not real.
Yeah, it's very selective.
And it's just misplaced.
Right. That is a great point. I mean, if you were more angry with Trump calling rape gangs in MS-13 animals than you were at Samantha Bee being called a cunt, then where's our moral compass? There is none, right?
There is none.
Yeah, I thought it was just so.
It's all fly by your seat anger, which is why it'd be best to just ignore it all and judge the person individually. But we can't anymore. We have to get bogged down on each instance because it's a chance to hit the other side.
That's just the theme of this show, man. It's just showing the stupid hypocrisy of the left when they deal with this way. And another one that sort of hypocritical is this Joy Reid ridiculousness.
Oh God! Talk about someone who should be fired.
Talk about someone who should be fired. I mean, she has said some pretty egregious fucking things that if Donald Trump did half of the things that Joy Reid had said, I'd be like, yeah, well, there's a pretty big problem. There's a pretty big problem here. And for that, we're going to go... I'm sorry, repeat that. I lost that.
It's not just it was one thing and it's over. It was one thing and now it's another thing. It's a gold mine of prior things that she has said and done, written, posted that continues to come out. And her defense is just like, oh, I don't think I did that. Moving on.
Like, no, yeah, she has
amnesia. She doesn't even have to provide she literally said I have amnesia. Like,
was this the 1940s?
I
have amnesia.
If you look at my wallet, I'm a card-carrying leftist, so this doesn't matter.
Exactly. It's like I had amnesia for 3 years while I was writing blog posts 3 times a week. Craziness. So for that, to catch people up, I just want to go back to our YouTube video and just play this. It's a 2.5-minute clip. Just want to play.
Look closely. That's Arizona Senator John McCain's head photoshopped on the body of the Virginia Tech shooter who killed 32 people back in 2007. The offensive blog post was first discovered this week by BuzzFeed on a now defunct blog called The Reid Report. The blog once belonged to MSNBC host Joy Reid. This post was titled Baghdad John Strikes Again and published in October 2007.
Actually, while I'm watching this video, it's about Baghdad John and her putting John McCain's head on the Virginia Tech shooter. I just want to say, I actually don't think they would get that angry at that. I think they probably still agree that Republicans are responsible for school shootings, as evident by all the school shootings that we've had in the past 2 months, you know what I mean? Which is really sort of a sad coincidence, but...
Actually, of all the things that she said, that's probably the least offensive in this day and age.
Isn't that so sad?
Like in 2006, that would have been a huge thing, and like I guess she wasn't. I don't really know if she was big back then, but if she said that today,
David Hogg would retweet it.
Yeah, she'd probably have to issue a small apology to keep her MSNBC gig and keep face, and then.
Well, actually, now John McCain is one of the biggest heroes of the American political system of all time. He's honestly just a great man who's never done anything wrong in his entire career, and that involves... did you see, this is getting off topic, John McCain apologized for the Iraq War? Did you see that?
When did he do that?
He had, in his memoir, he said, I think it may have been a mistake. Interesting. I think it may have been a mistake. 500,000 brown people dead. It may have been a mistake.
More than that, but we won't get into it.
Yeah, maybe even more than that, and all the wars and destabilization across the Middle East. I
don't think it's maybe more than that. It's clearly more than that. And if you take all the people that have died as a byproduct of that war, you could argue you don't have Syria where 500,000 died.
It
things
isn't
like that.
too far of a stretch to say John McCain voted for the war that created ISIS and then voted to give them weapons. That's pretty much where we're at, right?
Yeah.
So sorry,
well,
I just was saying. John McCain, sad, whatever. No, it's not just him, but he was one of the biggest proponents of all these wars. So I just find it interesting that you're allowed to, on your deathbed, when you've lived this full, long life where everyone is now giving you standing ovations whenever you walk into the room, you're allowed to have these policies, and it's Republicans and Democrats alike, the center, neoconservative war parties that don't really have to take responsibility. And it's also like, I'm taking responsibility by saying I'm sorry. What fucking responsibility is that? That's not responsibility.
And so 2 points here. I think you could make a good argument that if he wasn't sick and was still in Congress, one, he wouldn't have said that, and two, he would probably still be advocating for intervention in any place that you pointed to in a map. But, aside from that, if I was more conspiratorial minded, just going back a bit, wrapping all this in, maybe all this outrage about things that don't matter and what people say, and Samantha Bee, who really has no, bearing on what our actual policies are or laws as a nation, like maybe all the outrage and attention spent to that is just to divert from the fact that both parties are pretty much aligned on most issues, and they're just driving a wedge between people on social issues, and the things that are actually getting done really never changes from administration to administration. It's just pick which side you fall in terms of the outrage, and then the policies and everything will be relatively the same.
Right, we've talked about this. On all the things that actually matter, there is only one party. On the things like war, they both agree.
Spending money,
they
which
both agree.
Influences everything else. Like if it comes down to it, do you like this or do you like that? Name me a policy. Is it going to get funded? And it's going to get funded no matter who is it, so it's not going anywhere. The Republicans will cry wolf about Planned Parenthood, but they get full control of Congress, and it's still funded. So they lie to you in campaigns, and then they just continue on spending your money recklessly and engaging in any war possible that they can sell.
How do we fix that? How do we fix the whole I know that's what a tough question to answer. How do we fix people always say we need to keep politicians accountable. We try.
Well, no.
Right?
See, I think right there is the issue. We don't keep them accountable because if you look at polling, people overwhelmingly support their own congressman.
Right.
Like if they ask, like if they poll Pat Toomey in PA, like how's Pat Toomey doing? Like Republicans will give him like an 80%, and then like how's Congress doing? Congress gets like 12. So like people love to bitch about Congress, like, oh, Congress is screwing us, you know what I mean? These politicians. But then they ask them individually about their own politician and people fall in love with them. So, I mean, and then you just get people that go there for 40 and 50 years. And if you want to read about that, I wrote something about that, 2-3 months ago. So I don't know how you keep them accountable. I think term limits would go a long way, but are they going to vote themselves out? No. I don't really know.
You're right.
I don't know.
Yeah. Damn, that's tough. Anyway, back to Joy Reid.
Yeah, that's Joy Reid being crazy.
Anyway, yeah, listen to this.
That discovery just one day after BuzzFeed found another disturbing post from 2006 in which Reid urged readers to watch Loose Change 9/11, which was produced in part by conspiracy theorist Alex Jones of InfoWars fame.
So, Bob, you didn't hear that, but what it just was they found a post of Joy Reid promoting Loose Change 9/11, which was the Alex Jones conspiracy video that said that, she asked, did the U.S. government do 9/11? And this used to be something that would get you thrown to Alex Jones territory. This is Alex Jones territory. Alex Jones produced the goddamn thing. Right. So it's funny how, listen, I'm okay with people being able to change their minds and realize that they were wrong. But that's not necessarily what Joy Reid did here. So I want to keep playing this.
The film series promotes the widely debunked theory that the September 11th terrorist attacks were planned and carried out by the United States government. The blogger, who could be Reid herself, asks, the fundamental question is, do you believe the official story of 9/11? Long before this week, Reid was already under pressure for homophobic blog posts more than a decade old. One post suggests Anderson Cooper is the gayest thing on TV, writing that most straight people cringe at the sight of two men kissing. A Twitter user first discovered many of the anti-gay posts, including one that calls homosexual sex gross. Reid's original explanation? Hackers. She hired a cybersecurity expert to investigate, and her attorney said the FBI had opened a probe. In a statement, he suggested the alleged hackers may have found a password on the dark web to access Reid's account.
Frankly, I couldn't imagine where they'd come from or whose voice that was.
In December, Reid issued a statement apologizing for the blog she wrote a decade ago and her choice of words and tone. That was all she said until late April, when she said she actually had no proof of hackers being responsible. So she apologized again for the posts, but still didn't take responsibility for writing the posts.
I genuinely do not believe I wrote those hateful things because they are completely alien to me. But I can definitely understand, based on things I have tweeted and have written in the past, why some people don't believe me.
So she essentially said, I genuinely don't think that's me. Reid reports she hired someone to see if they got her password on the dark web. If you're under 25 years old, you can just say, this is all bullshit. You wrote that stuff. Just take responsibility for it.
Right.
Just say, I'm sorry.
But like, wait, you're telling me a blog post by Joy Reid on the Reid Report 12 years ago was not by you? No. I think that was Russian hackers.
Dude, she called
And don't worry, there's an FBI probe. And then I love how people are like, this is where is it now? Like, what happened to that investigation?
She called Anderson Cooper the gayest thing on TV. Jesus.
She went after, not in that video, but she also went after Wolf Blitzer for not being, for being too soft on an Israeli official that he had on his show, around this time period. She called for all the Jews to be moved from Israel into Europe, anti-gay comments. And then just, wasn't me.
Twilight Zone episode, it must have been Amnesia. I'm feigning. She can't even comprehend where it would have come from. It's just, It's just really funny because she got obviously twisted in her own game, where she can't like admit, like, oh my god,
She can never admit it.
So now she's just gonna play this game that I don't know. It could have been the Russian hackers did it, but whatever.
Well,
It
hold
was
on.
Joy
We're
Reid.
we're joking and making light of this, but what the hell? Like, what actually? Not even so much that she said it or did any of that. You know, it was 12 years ago. You could say people change, even though what she was saying back then was pretty freaking crazy.
That was Roseanne. She was Roseanne crazy 12 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like, I don't know. What does it say about where we are as a country? The standards for news people, you know, what we're willing to just know is going on and turn a blind eye to. Like, how far could it go before she actually felt any repercussions for any of the things? Like, what would she have had to have done that now would come to light? That people would be like, oh, you can't just say it might have not been you.
Nothing.
And you genuinely don't think, I don't know whose voice that is. It was your voice. What are you talking about?
I know, dude. Well, she kind of she
It's
weathered the
insane.
blow.
Like,
No,
we're
she
allowed to
weathered the
pretend that
blow
this
and
is
she's
the thing.
past it. She's past it. It's done now, sort of.
But
you
but
know.
how is that? I don't know how we just can do that. Like,
Well,
but then I mean, I
not
guess I should
us.
look in the mirror though. Like, Trump's president. Moving on.
yeah, true. I mean,
Right.
he
There's
said
just
some
no-
pretty crazy shit.
It just goes back to accountability. There's no accountability. Nobody cares. It's just people are so dug into their own side that they can't. Well, here's what happens. When there is an outrage, if it's for left or for right, you're only going to get 50% of the heat. You're never going to get a full chorus of people, except for, you know, occasionally when there's someone on the right that deserves denunciation, like Roseanne Barr. You know what I
Right.
mean? So both sides know at most they're only going to continue to be hated by one side, so it's not worth turning on one of your own team members. It's just tribal. It's just you can't sacrifice someone on your own side because it's a win for the other side, and what really matters is the culture war. That's where we're
Right.
at.
It's all about the culture war, and the reality is, you know, you get in trouble, you take a lot of heat for 2 days, and then it's gone. People move on to the next thing. Then me and you start talking about something else. And that's just.
I guess that might be social media is
a
definitely playing a
reality.
factor in that. Well, I think one, it brings most of this to light. You wouldn't have found this if this wasn't posted on the internet. And two, because so much is coming to light, things just fall right out of the news cycle.
Yeah.
Like, I remember when all the Harvey Weinstein stuff was coming on, I saw someone make a post and it was just like, now would be the perfect time to release something dirty about yourself because it would just be swept under the rug immediately.
I mean,
There was
very
just,
true.
there's just too much going on any given day to follow every story.
Yeah. Did you see Harvey Weinstein actually got arrested? He put himself in on Friday. Thank God. Get that monster the hell off the streets.
Yeah, it was nice to see him in cuffs. That was actually
Very
pretty fun.
satisfying. I'm sure Meryl Streep is very torn up about it. Got to get my shots in on Meryl. I'm not a Meryl fan. Mamma Mia was overrated.
Yeah, Roman Polanski next. Maybe she'll sit down and not clap this time.
True, very much so. I want to get into something now. That was more the fun stuff, as much as it didn't seem very fun for us. That was some culture stuff. I want to get into two, though, pretty serious things. One being the tariffs that Donald Trump put on our allies in Mexico, Canada, and the EU. And the second is Tommy Robinson and what's going on in the UK, because I think it's pretty important for people to be aware of what's going on there. So let's sort of have to make like a warning before this and sort of get some thoughts out on the way first. So
Sure.
who Tommy Robinson is, I'm getting a lot of my information from Douglas Murray. I'll be honest, I've seen videos of Tommy Robinson before. I've seen him at protests. I think I've seen him interviewed by Majid Nawaz, who's an anti, sort of an anti-extremist activist and host that works for Quilliam. We've talked about before. So, immigration in the UK is a very, very touchy subject right now. And it's a very touchy subject because a lot of people feel that there's a culture clash. And there certainly is, if you look at as some of the videos emerging from, and I don't know how prevalent this is, right? Like, I don't know if this is like weird isolated events that are happening in certain cities, or if this is like because it's presented as like a countrywide thing.
Well, the event in question that got Tommy Robinson in trouble, which we'll get to, is certainly not an isolated event.
Right. Okay. That's fair. So basically, Tommy Robinson is part of this like new movement in the United Kingdom who are pretty much I would say it's fair, anti-Islamization of the United Kingdom. Right? Would you say that's fair?
Yeah, 100%. They have.
So not necessarily anti-immigrant.
No, I would not say he's anti-immigrant. I would say he's
Islamization.
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 But it's not hard to stretch his views to anti-Muslim immigrant in general.
Right.
I would say. So like 10 years ago, he started the EDL, the English Defense League, and they were basically just an anti-Islamization group, and then. There's a great article by Douglas Morrow in National Review, and in it he says, if you have a group that is constantly painted by the media as the coming of the Fourth Reich and anti-Muslim, even if they're not, the 10 people that are going to show up to the meetings.
Yeah, and Tommy Robinson, it's important to put a caveat there. Tommy Robinson got arrested for headbutting a neo-Nazi because the neo-Nazi wouldn't leave his rally. Apparently,
right.
And
he eventually left.
Tom Robinson
EDL.
said, "You're a neo-Nazi. Get the fuck out of here." Had gone to a fight with him, but all you see is Tommy Robinson headbutting people. He's a violent criminal.
Right.
The reason that Tommy Robinson started the EDL was in his hometown of Luton, England, small town. Mm-hmm. A regiment from Afghanistan came back to Britain, and they had a little parade for their troops. And a giant protest by what Muslim immigrants and just, I guess, I think they're Pakistani Brits, I guess, is who they're talking about there. Essentially had a protest against the soldiers, calling the soldiers killers and like evil. And what these English people were saying was like, hey, they're our troops. Aren't we allowed to like support them? And this sort of got inflamed with the revelation of the Rotherham scandal. And
if you don't know what that is, and you hear,
it's scary.
Okay, it's mass gang rape.
Yeah.
And they call it grooming gangs. Essentially, primarily Pakistani-born immigrants to the UK. For the last 15 years have been systematically and in an organized fashion raping young British girls. Thousands. And
what really, I think, set fire to the gas on that was the revelation that the British government was covering it up. Because
they covered it up.
They covered it up because they were scared of being called racist. And that's the official report.
Yes,
so they were
put
afraid
press holds on things.
They were afraid to prosecute
arrest.
these people.
Yes.
Because they didn't want to be seen as racist. And, I can't blame people for being angry at that when little girls are being abused and it's, well, we can't do anything about it. That's racist.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a tenable position at all.
No.
That is something worth protesting. That's something worth getting out in the streets and demanding your government do something about.
Mm-hmm.
And so they formed this English Defense League, and like Bob was saying, it attracted nasty, racist elements to it. And Tommy Robinson eventually left the English Defense League. And ever since, he's sort of just been reporting. He's pretty brave. If you watch these videos where he goes, bro.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
it's kind of crazy.
Bro, like 15 people will just show up swarming, threatening to kill this dude in his own country.
Like they talk about like no-go zones in the country. He's like, well, I'm just going to bring a camera and walk through it and see what happens. Like, this is the United Kingdom. I should be able to walk down the street. And then all of a sudden there's like swarms of people that are like following him and looking at him and like in Italy, a reporter was in Italy talking about the migrants coming in, a couple years ago, as a part of the Syrian war. And while she was reporting, she got assaulted, the female reporter and her camera crew. So he heard about that, went to the same place in Italy, and he has video of it. He's there. He gets, harassed by a bunch of people. He turns his back at one point, and a guy raises his hands and says, like, "I can kill you." And he turns around and just clocks him, like, right in the face.
Yeah.
So, again, got bad press coverage. The problem is everything he does, he's going to get negatively painted by the media. And then he does things like that are just unwise. So it double backfires.
I know. Yeah.
So he's kind of a fool of his own device, but he's hitting on points that are getting ignored by the media and the government. And it's like, he shouldn't be the one to have to do this.
No, where are all the people? I mean, where are all the journalists that are, supposed to be?
They don't care, Matt. The migrants. Here's the thing, though. Immigrants, in large, I would say, are not like this. But to ignore the portion that are does a disservice to everyone.
Yeah, it does a disservice to immigrants themselves who aren't like this.
Yes. And so they would rather sweep it under the rug. And it's like, they have this hope, I think, that, maybe they're not assimilating now, but in the future, don't worry, it'll all be great. Like, just like, in the United States, like all, there was once Italians that weren't assimilated and all that. And now it's great. Okay, we can pin our hopes on that. And what's the price in the meantime? Tommy Robinson gets thrown in jail for questioning, and thousands of girls have to get raped so that eventually they'll be assimilated and everything will work out fine. I don't know if I'm willing to pay that price.
Well, I was listening to an interesting interview with Neil Ferguson on Dave Rubin's show, and he was talking about Brexit, and he talked that he was for staying in the EU. Right, so if you guys remember, Britain had a vote whether they're going to stay in the EU or they're going to leave in the EU. Staying in the EU, leaving the EU would most certainly mean economic hardship. Right, that's a fair price. But when Niall said that he could never answer when people were asking him why he was a stay reporter, a Remainer, right, a Remainer,
right,
was people would ask, what are you going to do about immigration? If Brussels, the UK people were promised immigration by the tens of thousands. The reality is it got boosted to the hundreds of thousands. If they remain in the EU, what are you going to do about immigration? And the reality is they don't really have that much of a choice. Brussels has more of a choice, and that was the one question. Neil Ferguson, he's a conservative historian. He was saying I couldn't answer that. If your one issue is immigration, then leaving the EU was the only way you were going to get in charge of your borders.
Right.
That's really sad that it has to be that way, because because the people who advocate for immigration, they're usually pretty high up. They're usually not the ones that have 100,000 migrants move into their town, right? And have this small portion of listen. I want to choose my words carefully, obviously, but when you're just importing poor people from a war-torn country, you're not going to be able to just put them in a house somewhere and everything's going to be, super smooth. That's just not how it works.
They're not going to get a job in a month, start paying taxes. Their kid's going to go to school and fit in just fine. Like, that's why you have to do it on numbers that can cohese.
Right,
that
so you can
be
work
cohesive
people
to the
in.
society.
Yeah, work people into the society, bring them into the society, share values with people, right? Bring them into the community. But what instead you have is so many people that they're just creating their own, cultures without assimilating.
They'll just take over a town, and that town is indistinguishable from, Syria.
It's
like
now
just a Syrian town in the UK.
It's like a little Italy, except, on a much bigger scale with some cultural problems that are a lot worse, unfortunately. And so, Tommy Robinson has been sort of on the forefront of this, and people have been painting him out to be a bad guy. And he certainly hangs around with some bad people, I will say. I mean, he is friendly with people like, is it Brittany Pettibone and some of the white national... I don't know if she's necessarily a white nationalist. I think she's like a nationalist, which I think is kind of stupid, right? I'm not big into the whole like identity politics for white people game. I think that's just as stupid as the identity politics for other people.
Right.
But this
It's
is
just
the
like Douglas
reaction.
Murray
This is
said.
the reaction.
If you're the only one calling this out, and he kind of is, you're going to get the cretins to join along. And that's just, you know, I think it's important to touch on this and to know what's going on over there because, you know, I don't know who said it or what the saying is, but Europe's basically just the United States 15 years in advance. And if that's the case, we don't want to be in the position that they're currently in. And I think that's,
right.
You know, obviously immigration is a huge reason of why Trump won.
Right. For different reasons, though. I mean, I think the United States is better at assimilating people, I will say, just by the nature of our size and scope. Different. We have a lot more cultures than, you know, Britain does, for sure.
Right.
Right.
No, of course. I mean, cultures just state to state differ. But again, it's just the central questions. It's how many, you know, just it stems from the denial of those in favor. Utter
Right.
denial.
It is
not
utter denial.
It's not that they can.
There are no negatives. It is.
There are no negatives. Exactly.
It is. There are no
They
negatives.
don't recognize any of the negatives. It's. Oh, there's gang rape going on. Oh, we'll just push that under the carpet. We can't blow the narrative that immigration is the best thing ever, and like immigration is amazing, but not that much. Maybe we have a discussion about that. How much is too much? You know what I mean? But we can't. Or maybe from where? That's even worse. Can't have that discussion. And so he's been making noise about it, drawing attention to it. Maybe not in the best ways at all. But so recently, about a year ago, you know, one of the people who did get arrested and charged for rape in the UK, he was filming outside of the court hearing. And I'm not sure why, but the UK puts like press holds on it. I guess to keep the jury pool uncontaminated. They don't allow reporting until like a certain point in the case. And so he got arrested for a charge such as that the first time around, pled guilty, and, you know, the judge just gave him a year's worth of probation. And the specifics was it like not probation for any violation. It was like, don't do that again. That specific violation. Don't.
And he's his own worst enemy here.
He's his own worst enemy again. Because what did he do? He was just filming, like not even on the court property, like across the street, streaming Facebook Live of the person getting walked in for another arraignment on rape charges. And, you know, a UK police van rolls up. They walk right up to him. They grab him by the arm, stick him in the back of a truck for a violation of the peace. And, you know, went right to court. Within 10 minutes was found guilty, obviously, because he redid it, what he did the first time, sentenced to 13 months in jail.
And, you know, honestly, what I've heard is sending Tommy Robinson to jail is like sending him to a death sentence.
Yeah.
If we're being completely honest. Apparently he gets a bunch of death threats from people saying, if you come around here, you know, you're going to get your head chopped. I mean, it really is crazy, and it's just ridiculous being an American hearing that someone can get thrown in jail for something like this.
Yeah.
You're like, whoa, pretty. Yeah. When I heard about this, I was like, he was just filming outside a courtroom, and they are putting him in a cage for this.
Well, it's. I mean, I'm sure there's something on the books that he clearly broke, which is how he ended himself in jail. But I mean, it's the effort that the UK government has gone through to silence Tommy Robinson over the last couple of years is far more than the effort they're putting into protecting young UK girls from getting raped by immigrants. Like a couple years before this, they went all through like his mortgage filings and found some weird loophole that caught him some jail time. Like they have gone or just to catch this guy doing inappropriate things, to silence him on these issues that they don't want discussed. And seeing the government work in that fashion is scary because you could, you know, they're not that far ahead of us. It'll come here. Believe me, it'll come here.
It's scary. The state can do with impunity what no one else can.
Right.
And it's scary because in my opinion, if you want to mend these divisions in, immigration and these people. The route is through what Maja Nawaz is doing in getting, Muslims are people just like everyone else. There are conservative, liberal, moderate, whatever. You have to get the moderate, like, I always think of them as circles, right? Like the extremists are like this in the middle, then like Islamist, conservative, moderate, liberal, right? It goes out, and they're concentric circles. And you got to build a relationship with the people that know this is a bad thing, because there's definitely a bunch of Muslims who obviously are not into raping little girls. But the conversation has been framed in such a way that it's all white UK people versus all Muslims, and so everyone picks their tribe, and he's they're on my team, and he's a racist, and so he's got to be put down, and there's got to be somewhere in the middle that that we can come together and stop the craziness, because this isn't conducive to a healthy society, clearly.
Well, lying to your own people and covering things up that exist is not healthy, and that's in my opinion
Right.
where the
That's
whole
where it
problem
started.
comes from. If you have a recognition of actuality on the ground and you tell the truth about the situation, the people will reason out a reasonable point. But if you say there's no issue here, it's craziness on your end, and if you believe it, you're a racist, then that clear defense of everything immigration is going to draw a response of everything anti.
Fair, yeah.
So, I mean, they're
I don't
doing
know,
it to
man. The
themselves.
UK it's really scary, because
The EU is really scary.
I don't know what's going to happen in the next 10 years. I mean, I shared with you that that BBC report that there was a blast in Germany, a terror blast in Germany, and the headline was "Migrant Dies in German Blast." Now, when I read that, I was like, "Holy shit! Did like
A gas factory blow up and
Yeah,
kill a
did,
bunch of immigrants?"
did like a bunch of people?" But what actually was a migrant strapped a bomb to his chest and blew it up. And so that's a terror attack. And
Right.
but it's framed that nothing's wrong. It was just one migrant got killed by. It was the Germans' fault. Was essentially when I read that, I was like, oh damn, Germany did something bad. Like, who did they kill someone? But it turned out to be the complete other way. So those types of headlines. That was the BBC. That only gives fuel for these anti-immigrants people, man.
Right.
Both sides are their own worst enemies. I think it's fair to say.
And it's all driven by the media. Like I said, if you think this won't come here, okay, they jump through hoops to make it look like Germany killed an immigrant. Didn't they just jump through hoops to make it look like Samantha Bee using the C word is actually empowering to women? It's not a stretch to
Yeah, I
imagine
mean, it's a
this
little
here in 10
different.
years.
Yeah, okay. I mean, in 10 years,
It's the same concept.
I don't know, man. It's scary. We don't know where we're headed. And now, United States, Donald Trump, he's been bragging. Started switching topics. He was bragging about his economy, bragging about the jobs report, right? Lowest unemployment recorded, right? Something like that.
3.8%.
Now, it's funny when Nancy Pelosi comes out and says that actually doesn't mean anything. People having jobs doesn't mean anything. Which, if she made the point that wages are stagnating, maybe that's something we can talk about. But anything to score a point. But what Trump didn't do, and what definitely is not going to help his economy, are these tariffs.
Yeah, it's like, wow, we got a great economy, low unemployment, we're roaring. Let's just start a trade war. That isn't actually a trade war, but is a trade war. But
With our allies.
Right.
And I made someone made the point, I forget who it was, it might have been Ian Bremmer, but he was saying, do you think that a Russian, if Trump is trying to not be a Russian puppet president, is there anything Russia doesn't want more than the United States to be fighting with our allies? Isn't that a win for Russia? Putting tariffs on the EU, Mexico, Canada. Isn't that what they want? Don't they want us to be divided? Don't they want us to fight and stuff like that? Or our enemies I'm talking about. I'm saying that we're not doing ourselves any favors by
Not at all.
by putting tariffs on our friends. Steel tariffs. And tariffs are stupid.
first off, tariffs in general are stupid. I think there's legitimate places where you can push back on allies, and I think he's done that, with like say NATO funding. But this is not that, and they're making it a national security thing to sort of to get it by, because of course we've talked about this. Everything's national security, but yeah, we'll see if he actually goes through it and if this is actually rhetoric or turns into policy, because just like tariffs on China was going to be policy and ended up just being rhetoric. But yeah, he plans on throwing tariffs onto the. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, my computer's dying here. Go ahead.
Sorry, you just froze a little bit. You're still here. So I'm actually gonna play a real quick video from someone who, oh man, Bobby just lost the connection. So it looks like I'm gonna have to end this by myself, I guess. Wow, unfortunately. I just want to play this video real quick by someone that we necessarily don't agree with all the time, but who was right, and that's Justin Trudeau of Canada.
The target of punitive tariffs on Canadian aluminum and steel under pretext of a 232 national security provision. Let me be clear. These tariffs are totally unacceptable. For 150 years, Canada has been the United States' most steadfast ally. The numbers are clear. The United States has a $2 billion surplus in steel trade with Canada, and Canada buys more American steel than any other country in the world. Indeed, we account for half of U.S. steel exports. Canada is a secure supplier of aluminum and steel to the U.S. defense industry, putting aluminum in American planes and steel in American tanks. That Canada could be considered a national security threat to the United States is inconceivable. These tariffs are an affront to the long-standing security partnership between Canada and the United States.
So I'll end it right there. And of course, you see, Bobby is no longer with us. He's texting me now, but I just wanted to end with that because I think tariffs aren't a good idea, but they're really politically popular. And I'm not sure if I've talked about this before, but when you put a tariff on someone, what you're essentially doing is you're throwing red meat to a certain constituency. And in this case, Donald Trump is trying to throw red meat to the steelworker industry. And so the reason that tariffs work politically is that steelworkers may keep their jobs. Sure. But the reality is that the cost of those tariffs actually ended up getting dispersed among all of us and all the people in steel products across the United States. Free trade is the way to help the most amount of people. I don't know if it was Milton Friedman that said this. He's I think he's a conservative. He's an economist. He said tariffs get passed because it helps a small amount of people save jobs that they don't think they'd have, but without tariffs, you could create jobs that people aren't even aware of. Something like that. I probably butchered the quote awful, but it essentially gets to the point as you're limiting and restricting the steel industry of the entire world essentially by putting these tariffs on. And our trade partners no less. I just think it's stupid. Why create division across allies when it's not necessary? And so for that, I'll end. Thanks for watching, guys. If you made it this far, I'm sorry Bobby had to cut out. We had those last 2 weeks. We will be back next week and every week after that on Monday. Enjoy the rest of your day, guys.